Hello and welcome to the Let That Shift Go podcast. I'm Noel.
And I'm Lena.
And this is where we talk about the good, the bad, and all the shift in between.
We'll just talk mad shift.
Let's get into it.
And on today's episode, we have a very special guest, Dr. Adam Rizvi. He is a passionate neurointensivist, teacher, writer with a profound love for exploring the convergence of spirituality and healing. And we are doing this podcast today because we have an upcoming workshop that Adam will be guiding us through here at Serenity Cove. And it's one that is so near and dear to my heart. It is called Forgiving Death. And it's just going to be something so powerful for anyone. It really literally is for anyone. And so we're having him on today to talk a little bit about himself and how this workshop even came into being and what inspired it. So I hope you'll listen in and get something from it. So welcome, Adam. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Lena. It's a pleasure and a joy to be with you.
So I'm excited to be talking about this workshop that we're going to be doing together here at Serenity Cove. And I would like you to tell me a little bit about where the idea came for this, for forgiving death.
I think, so as you know, as an intensivist, what we do is we work in the ICU, and very often, and you know this too from your background, in critical care medicine, sometimes it's very clear the patient's not going to make it and they're going to die. And I've quickly come to realize in my career, that's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean you failed as a physician. It doesn't mean we failed as a medical institution. It just means it's the patient's time. And and they chose that was going to be the moment that they left the body. And in all the years that I've been doing this and just in my personal experience, I realized a couple of fundamental premises. One, we're not the body. And that there is, in fact, something that does continue on. It's a very long discussion in and of itself. It's called the hard question of consciousness. Does consciousness exist a priori to the physical, or is it, as many materialist reductionist scientists would say, an epiphenomenon of the firings of the neurons in the brain? In my personal experience, I've had an experience of not being the body.
Mm-hmm.
And in the hospital, I've seen and experienced pretty amazing, wild things with my patients at the moment of death. And as a spiritual practitioner myself, as a regular meditator, I realized that the moment of dying is actually a pretty important moment for the soul, for the mind, whatever you want to call it. And if I happen to be at the bedside of someone who's dying frequently, let me learn how to be present fully. Let me learn to be as helpful as possible, truly helpful to someone who's making their transition, who may only have me and a couple nurses to be by them in that moment. And when I was early on, I think as a med student and then resident, I would always have this thinking of like, my gosh, this is someone who's lived a full life. They've had a childhood, parents, lovers, enemies, trials and tribulations. I felt like I had a life review kind of flash in my own mind about them, and realizing that all of that culminated to the moment of them being with me.
Yeah.
And then I thought, God, let me support that soul. Let me support that mind, that heart, to make that transition. And then I started to do self-inquiry, like, what would I need to do? How would I need to show up so that their transition is peaceful and sacred and full of honor and joy?
Yeah.
And that led me to a lot of discoveries.
Yeah. When you reached out and told me about this workshop, it hit really close to home, because recently I, lost a very good friend to leukemia, and it was a 4-year battle. And towards the end, watching the amount of suffering and pain and fear, I had to address my own fear and like my own sense of mortality, and really kind of being at a loss for how to support this person who is imminently at the door, and there's no running. There's no, oh, maybe it won't. And this is here, this is now. And really kind of reaching within myself to find how can I best sit with you and just be present and be helpful and to find a way to help relieve some of the fear or the pain that you're experiencing, I'm experiencing, your family is experiencing. And there was really a big void, when it kind of came to the healthcare side, even the family side, or sometimes the spiritual side of what is offered through different types of religion and all of that. And so I saw that there was this big gap, and me, I've done my own spiritual practice and I have my own beliefs about reality and consciousness, but I was still at a loss of how to help this other person. And when you reached out and said you were doing this, I'm like, this is for anyone, because the one thing we're all guaranteed is it's all temporal.
Yeah.
We're all going to be there at some point or support someone in that space or be with someone who is supporting someone in that space. So yes, it's absolutely, I think, gosh, this should be taught in nursing school. I wish that I would have learned it in nursing school. But for anyone who's kind of traversing life at all, it's something that is really important. So I'm so glad that you're doing this. When I saw how the day looks, this full day of experience, I was just like, I didn't even get 1/3 through. I'm like, yes, yes. So just really, talking about, I know you even, you're talking about the Course in Miracles and that being something that also has guided your practices and moving through the world and non-dualism and all of that. How do you really apply all of these principles to someone, say, who's, fully a Catholic, fully in a religious practice, but can still be able to be helped through this sense of presence or help?
Yeah, I'll just share with you one principle that comes from A Course in Miracles, but it also is present in other forms of non-dualism. And this is the idea that we're all one. And it's not just a metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
There is one fundamental substance, and that substance is pure love. You could call it God. And the teaching is that that's all there is. And any appearance to the contrary, like you sitting in front of me, Lena, and me being Adam, this is an illusion. Now, here's the cool thing about it. Some part of your mind, deep down in the unconscious, subconscious mind, knows this. It remembers, it knows that, oh yeah, there's only one of us here. And so when you make a determination about someone, that person is, an a-hole, that he's so stupid, or I can't believe she did that. The judgments we make about someone else, yes, we're putting the blame out there, but that part of our mind, deep down inside, it still knows there's only one of us here. So everything we just said gets deeply internalized to be about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And now that can deepen us into a prison and a trap of seeing ourselves as unworthy and bad. And the more we condemn others, the more we're condemning ourselves, because that part of us knows what we're saying is about us. The key, though, is you just flip it around. You start to see perfection in another. You start to see the truth of who someone is, that all their expressions of anger and mistrust and jealousy, it's all cry for love. It's all a cry for love. And the person who's the being who's doing the crying is whole and pure and perfect and wholly worthy of all the love this universe can give. And when you see that person as that, then that part of your mind, deep down, starts to internalize that truth. Oh, I'm whole. I'm perfect. There's nothing wrong with me.
It's the mirror.
Yeah, exactly. It's the mirror principle. And so what I think, one of the power that I've noticed with the practice that I do with my patients who die is I see them as perfect, and I make sure I see them as perfect. I go through the illusion of how they were as a personality, interacting with myself and the nurses in case it was negative. And I go through the illusion of a body that's diseased and appearing to be dying. And I go to the core of who they are: eternal, perfect, love. And what I notice is what I'm doing, now if we acknowledge non-physical energy and different thought forms as a reality, I'm offering sort of a package, like a gift to them saying, this is who you really are. I'm seeing you as this. And as they're making this transition, which can be fraught with confusion, like what's happening, especially for those who don't believe in life after death, there's a sort of a shock. They're getting this wave of energy, if you will, or this thought bubble, reminding them, you're just love. You're just love. And there comes a peace over them. And I feel like genuinely when I do this, I can feel a being going from a place of confusion and fear to a place of trust and love and peace. And then they can make that transition because you've held that energy for them. And the power of this is not just to help them, but the more I see them as that, I'm healing myself.
The more you see yourself as that.
Exactly.
Wow. That is so powerful. I can just imagine if, being in the position of having to hold that space with someone, whether it's your family member, whether it's maybe even in a place where there was forgiveness that needs to be found, is being able to remember those principles and remember that heart of love and acceptance and wholeness and seeing another soul on a soul's journey, not just what they were to you or, whether it was just as a patient or as a father or as a mother. And there was a lot of things probably that happened over that course of the journey together. But being able to see each other in love and wholeness and having that reflected back is, you're absolutely right, so healing for both.
Yeah, because we all hold so much hangups, guilt and pain, a deep sense of unworthiness. I think it's such a prevalent aspect of our society. And I even notice it in myself, to see through someone's appearance and to know them as wholly worthy of my love, let alone, the love of God and the world, breaks something inside of me. It breaks an old pattern of me feeling unworthy. If I can give something to someone, that means I've had it to give in the first place.
And it comes right back.
Yeah.
Kind of tenfold.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think same goes for anger, judgment, all of that comes back also, and being able to switch that and just see somebody in love and wholeness is so important so that they can see that in themselves, because there is a part of them that knows that.
Yeah.
And until it's recognized, sometimes in the eyes of someone else, they don't remember. They don't see themselves that way until they can see it reflected back.
That's very true. I just had a thought right now. Have you ever seen What Dreams May Come?
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it's a great movie. And I think it's a good teaching for many people about the moments after death. I think it was Cuba Gooding Jr., right?
Robin Williams.
Yeah.
And was Cuba Gooding?
I think Cuba Gooding was his mentor or guide after he died. And he says so many great things in there. His body appears blurry, and he tells Robin Williams, the main character, I wonder why you're not willing to see me yet, right? And so one of the teachings that in that movie is that the moment that you die or that the body passes away, your mind keeps right on going, but it sees only what it's willing to see, and it sees only what it understands to be real. And there's a really important moment in those first few hours to days where you are like potentially lost at sea. You have no rudder. You don't know where you are. And everything that you're seeing is an immediate reflection of your own beliefs and your thoughts. So if you fear something, that's what you get. You see fear, you see monsters and demons. In the Buddhist tradition, they call this the bardo. It means the in-between. And they often report it as being filled with monsters and whatnot. But that's all self-generated.
Yeah.
And until you recognize that, it can be a self-created hell.
Yeah.
And so I feel like in those moments, it's so important. That's why in many traditions, when someone dies, there's someone whispering prayers to them, reminding them who they are, reminding them what's really important, because then that soul hears that, and lost potentially in a world of dreams and nightmares, they get this voice from outside reminding them, you're safe, you're cared for, you're loved.
Yeah.
And, for those who are with someone at their deathbed, I think those are probably one of the most important messages to give to that person. Just keep reminding them they're one with Source. They're loved, they're cared for, and they're free.
Yeah. I know when you talked about that before with you're free. You're not bound by all of the stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so, I'm going to share with you. Now I feel like I'm talking too much.
What do you think we're doing here?
I want to share this story because
Please do.
It impacted me really deeply. I was in a hospital in Tucson, and I had a patient who was dying of COPD, end stage. It was a pulmonary disorder, and his family was in another state, and he wanted to see them before they came, and he didn't want to be intubated. So we had him on a BiPAP, a mask to put pressurized oxygen in, and we were trying to keep him alive, stretch that out so that his family could come. And they were on a flight, but it was pretty clear that he was not going to make it, and they weren't going to make it in time. And he unfortunately lost consciousness. I think his carbon dioxide levels were too high, and he sort of slipped. And then eventually his oxygen levels dropped, and then his heart stopped. And I remember standing there with him, and this was peri-COVID days, so I was all gowned up and everything. And when his heart went asystolic, when his heart stopped, I felt a pressure in the room. It felt dark and oppressive. There was a feeling of like tension and fear. And I was just looking at him, and I started to go within and say, yeah, everything's all right. Everything's all right. And I saw, this is where as physicians and nurses, we need to learn to trust our intuition. But I was getting these mental images of like a man looking for something that he lost on the street, like looking and searching. And I got this impression, this intuition. He left his body and he was looking for something. And I sort of just connected to say, well, what are you looking for? And he's like, where's my son? Where's my son? And then I realized, oh yeah, he was waiting for his family this whole time. And so I just connected with him, and I sent him a picture of his son flying. Like I just sent that little mental image, and I said, I'm going to talk to them. Everything's fine. And I had spoken to them that morning just to get an ETA. And I said, they're on their way. They're safe. They're fine. All the finances are in order. All the paperwork is done. You have nothing to worry about. They are totally cared for. And I just sent that little thought bubble to him. They're all okay. And I felt from him like, he just wanted them to know that they were okay. And that feeling of heaviness totally lifted up. And it was, this moment stuck for me because it was one of the few moments that I actually visually saw something. And I saw this circle of light up where the monitors were, the ICU monitors. And I felt him move into that light, some portal or something. It was clear that there was movement through. And after that, the room felt empty.
Wow.
And for me, it was one of the few moments where it's very clear something, in fact, does transpire after we die. And as healthcare providers, and really anyone can play a role in guiding those souls to move from confusion and fear to love and peace.
Yeah. And it feels like even the way you describe it is, it's so simple.
Yeah.
Is just to see someone in their wholeness, in love, and to know that everything's okay. And in some ways, you're just speaking to another part of yourself.
That's it. That's the key.
Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's what I love about this workshop so much is, yes, it's absolutely like essential, I think, for anyone who's working in healthcare, physicians, nurses, hospice, just anyone, right? But it's important for everyone to be able to get that message, because you don't have to wait until it's the end of the road for you or for someone else in order to make that realization now and start living your life in that way, because we're not promised anything.
Yeah.
You're not everyone is fortunate enough to know when the time is coming.
Right.
in some way, fortunate or not fortunate, but we're not guaranteed any of that. And so just being able to live in a way every day where that is reflected back to you and from you is a completely different way of living your life.
Yeah, that's a great point. It reminds me that one of the things I'm hoping to achieve with the workshop is to create a different context for people around death.
Okay. Yeah.
I think the current context is death is inevitable. It's a part of life, but it's very uncomfortable. Let's not talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's generally the Western purview. And some aspects of Eastern traditions who embrace the idea of reincarnation, death has a different context. The context is do the prayers so that you get reborn into a better life. And that's the context. So it's working towards improved life circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
For those who don't believe in reincarnation, Judeo-Christian traditions, and I grew up in that tradition, the idea is death is your last chance to atone, your last chance to repent.
Make it right.
Make it right, yeah. And that way, you get to go to heaven and not hell. And, what I'm hoping to create is a context that this is not a fear-based motivation. We're not doing this work at the moment of death because we're trying to avoid hell or we're trying to avoid bad circumstances for our next lifetime. This is part of a much deeper context of remembering who we are. This goes so much beyond that. It's realizing we've always been home. We've always been with God. We've actually never left. That's one of the core teachings of A Course in Miracles. We've never left home. We just think we're dreaming of exile, is one of the quotes.
Yeah.
We just have to remember. And when we face death or even contemplate death, it brings such a depth and profundity to the present moment. But if it's placed in that broader context, then we realize, oh yeah, this is all about remembering. This is all about remembering that I've never left. And seeing ourselves as not the body, as this eternal light, seeing others as eternal, perfect, and whole, is the undoing of all of those
knots.
Exactly, until there's nothing left but God.
Yeah.
That's the context.
I love that. That made it very clear. It was like watching that all kind of unfold as you were talking about it. And it really, you're right, it makes it so different because when so many people fear death, and when you put it in that context of like, well, this is the last time to atone, and I have all these things I still feel guilty about, or all these things I didn't do, or all of that, that can be, of course, if this is it, if this is your, the last moment, it would be filled with fear. But changing the context of knowing that it's not about that.
Yeah.
It's the remembering.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I love that. I know that, is that kind of like what you hope people, in attending this or even having this way of thinking are able to take with them? What is, if you're doing the workshop and at the end, you're like, what I really want is for them to walk away with this.
Yeah, that's it. If learning one tip or tool is nice, changing your entire context for how life is lived,
yeah,
that's priceless.
Yeah.
And if someone can come away from the workshop with an understanding that all of this is about remembering we've never left home, and that we've always been welcomed by, in the story of the prodigal son, his father loved him all along and wanted him home, but he needed to go off on his journey and only to realize that he's always been welcomed home. Oh. And he had such guilt, and I remember in the story talks about how he's unworthy, and the father, wraps him in this cloak and gives him this ring and says, "You're worthy of all of my riches." It took the journey for him to realize he's always been welcomed home. Oh. And that, I think, is the context for us, is to recognize we're all on this journey of remembering we've always been home. Not that we've left. We've always been there. We dream that we've left.
We're just dropping the illusion that we weren't.
That's right. Yeah.
That we're not always whole and complete and loved.
Yeah.
I love that. I know we talked about like there was a prayer that you do at the workshop. Is there anything else you want to share about the workshop, how it came together, or any other information, knowledge, anything that you want to share before you maybe do a little, just a sampling? Because when you told me part of it, when we met about doing this, I immediately, it was like my soul heard it and remembered.
Mm.
And there was this deep part that was like, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't want to cry now because we're on a podcast, but it was like yeah, you already know, you know, just remember. But please, if there's anything else that you want to share before we wrap up and maybe go into a sampling of the prayer, please do.
Yeah. Well, I think we can just go right into it.
Okay.
I don't have too much else to share.
Okay. One thing I'll say before the prayer, because I'd love to end with the prayer.
Sounds great.
Is the workshop is called Forgiving Death. It's on June 1st, and it's from 8:45 in the morning to 5:45 in the evening. It's full day. There will be lunch there. It's only $25. That's a lot of people have been like, it's $25. Where's the other zero? But this is because, you know, it's really something that we want everyone to be able to access. If there's anyone that even isn't able to do the $25, that's fine. You know, it's just a $25 donation for the food and the gathering. But please check out Serenity Cove. The workshop is called Forgiving Death on June 1st, 8:45 to 5:45. It'll be a small gathering, probably about 15, 20 people. But it's something that I think is so important. And for anyone, if you know someone who's going through this process, if you know someone who's either at the door or walking someone through it, if you're a healthcare provider, in any way you care for others, especially at this time in their lives, or you're a human being who needs to remember who you are, please come. Please come. So, yeah, with that, please, Adam.
And I'll also add a small piece here. My intention is to take all of this and put it in a book. And I am working on that. If anyone's interested and doesn't have the time, money, or whatnot to come to the workshop, go to adamrizvi.com, and then there's a spot where you can sign up to get updates on the book when it comes out.
Awesome. And you also have a place in Encinitas that you practice. Is that right?
Yeah, our family has a small clinic where we take care of neurological conditions in Rancho Santa Fe.
Awesome. So also look that up. We'll put some notes in the show itself for you to find more about Adam. And so, yeah, with that, I'll give you the mic.
So for whoever is listening, I want you to take a moment. Hopefully you're not driving. And if you are, just do your best to stay present with the road. Go within, close your eyes. And I think this prayer, this exercise is best done with someone in mind. Think of someone who has either passed away recently or is about to. And if there's no one that comes to mind, just think of yourself. In fact, we are all mortal, and this dream lifetime is pretty short, relatively speaking. Once you have that person in mind, and I'm sharing with each of you what I do with my patients, just take a moment and in the spirit of love, in the spirit of true, sincere wishing to help and to be of service, connect with them, connect with their heart, connect with their mind, their soul, whatever term you want to use. Just connect with them. And when you do that out of love, you can feel that. And because we know and parts of our mind remembers that we are one, we're really connecting with an aspect of ourselves. And now, and this is critical, the person you're thinking of, they may be sick. They might have some illness or disease. And if they've passed away already, then of course there's this illusion of death that's before you. I want you to see through that. It's literally like a curtain or a mist, like fog. You're going to cut through that. You're going to go through that fog, that curtain, that veil, which is giving you the appearance that there's disease and death. And just walk through that. And on the other side, you will see an effulgent light. You will see an eternal, endless light that's radiant. And just take a moment and be witness to that. That light, spotless and endless, is this person's true nature. And just acknowledge them as that. You might even choose to say, I see you as light. I see you as love. And know it. And now that you're connected with them, these thoughts that you have, they'll pick up on wherever they are. An aspect of their mind will pick up on how you are seeing them and seeing them truly. And now I want you to imagine them in their prime, so to speak. Imagine them playing, laughing, smiling, wearing their best outfits at the prime of their life. Really create a mental image of this person. And if it's you, see yourself as that. The idea here is you're informing yourself and them of their own perfection, of their own joy. All these images serve to communicate that. And now I want you to take a moment. This is especially important for those who are about to make their transition. From your heart, connected to them, you tell them they are free. They are free. And you could just say that directly. Say, you are free. You are loved. You are so loved. And you're cared for. And you always will be. Just envelop them in that love. Envelop them in that light, in that memory of total freedom. And this is important because for those who are going to make their transition, if they're a really important part of us, we might not want to tell them that. We might want to hold on and say, well, you're free, but just stay with me a little longer, right? So we just need to acknowledge that feeling of wanting to hold on. And this is where the healing comes for us. When we say you're free, we have to mean it, really mean it. You are free because true love doesn't hold back. True love gives. It offers. And so offer that freedom to them. You're free to go. You're free to continue your journey. Continue your grand adventure. And now, when you feel complete with that, final step is to see yourself standing in front of them in that light, communing with them, communing in your mutual freedom, mutual love, and watch as their body dissolves. And as their body dissolves into nothing, merging with that light, so does your body dissolve. Bit by bit, piece by piece, until there's nothing left. There is no form. And all that is left is an endless expanse of radiant light. Radiant love. And that is the truth of who you are and the truth of who they are, as one singular light. Just let's take a few seconds here in silence to rest in that light. Take a deep breath. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes.
Wow. Thank you so much, Adam. It's been an honor to have you here. I can't wait for the workshop. And I hope to see all who are meant to be there with us.
Likewise. And thank you for having me, Lena.
Absolutely.
All right, that's been another episode of Let That Shift Go podcast. I'm Noel.
And I'm Lena. Let us know what your questions are, and we'd love to use them on a future episode. Or check us out on Insta at Let That Shift Go, or visit our website, serenitycovetemecula.com.